what would you suggest for those considered highly compensated employees and cannot max out your 401k? Should you fund the rest in an IRA or a taxable brokerage account, assuming HSA has already been maxed out?
Brian, let me answer what this is and why it happens, and then why don't you talk about what to do, right? So for those of you that may not know, a lot of 401k plans or employer-sponsored retirement plans have to pass annual testing to make sure that the plan does not discriminate in favor of employees that are highly compensated. And highly compensated is defined generally as someone who last year made, I think the number is over $150,000, or they're a 5% owner of the company, or they're related to a 5% owner. So when the IRS and the Department of Labor look at the retirement plan in place, they want to make sure that that segment of the employment population is not being unfairly advantaged to the detriment of the non-highly compensated employees. And so what happens a lot of times is folks who make the high incomes, they want to max out retirement plans, max them out, max them out, max them out, max them out. Well, if the employer has not opted to have a safe harbor plan, which allows them to automatically pass the testing, and the plan fails testing, they may come out and say, hey, because all of our highly compensated participated so heavily, and because our non-highly compensated workforce did not, we have to refund some of the contributions made by the highly compensated workforce. And so what that ends up meaning is, where your intent was to put in $23,500 into your plan, and they say, hey, you can only put in $10,000. You can only put in $11,000. And a lot of times, people will be set to max out. They'll get all the way to the end of the year. They'll get into next year, and that's when they recognize that they failed testing, and they say, okay, hey, we're actually going to pull out $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 out of your 401k, and we're going to send it to you as a taxable distribution in the present year. So now you're stuck. You're like, man, I thought I was doing step 6. I thought I was maxing out. Now I have this money. What do I do? Where do I go? How do I handle it?
Well, I mean, let's take the financial order of operations. I mean, if you go through it, you've already mentioned, I'm assuming you've made it through 4 or 5, because this is really getting into a step 6, is you're not able to max out your employer plan because you're highly compensated. Well, now, what drives these? Remember, in the beginning, what's driving steps 1 through 4 really is to keep you from making desperate, bad decisions. That's why cash gets 2 steps. Step 2 is just, it's so lucrative to get 50 to 100% rate of return because your employer is matching you 50 cents on the dollar or dollar for dollar. You can't sleep on that. And then you can't afford to pay a credit card interest rate over 20% and never expect to ever build any wealth on your own. So that's why steps 1 through 4 are just to keep you, those are the rules, really. 5 and 6 are really tax motivated. And you've already answered one of our questions. You have a health savings account fully funded.
Yep, already
That's
done that.
great. What I didn't hear is it sounds like you potentially you make too much money to fund a Roth. So that's why you're already over to step 6, trying to max out the 401k. But you might be in a unique situation where you still have a tax advantage way. Before you move into step 7, you ought to consider maximizing the steps 5 and 6. The heart of it is being tax advantage savings. You might qualify for a backdoor Roth contribution. So, if you have all of your money only in your employer 401k, 403b, 457, you don't have any rollover IRAs, you don't have any IRAs other than maybe an inherited IRA, then you qualify to potentially fund a traditional IRA. And then after you fund that traditional IRA, because you make too much money to do a Roth, you can then convert it into a Roth IRA. And since it was a non-deductible traditional IRA contribution, there's no tax consequences.
That's right. And
now you've, in a tax-favored way, loaded up a Roth account. And you can do that every year that you keep this good account structure set up, no matter what your income is. It's really an amazing thing. Now, assuming you've already considered that, well, then you can get to step 7, hyperaccumulation, begin with the end in mind. How am I actually going to use this money in the future? What are my goals with the money? And if you figure out, hey, maybe I am going to need access to this money a little sooner than 55 for a 401k or 59.5 for traditional IRAs or other retirement vehicles, then I would load up the after-tax savings account with that extra money. That way you can go to 25% or even beyond, depending upon what your goals are. That's the thought process or the decision matrix I would go through when trying to figure out how to navigate this.